And Leah and I are joining you today. We've been talking a lot about rebuilding our businesses. Wednesday, I was honored and blessed to be invited by our local Colorado Springs SCORE mentors, and I taught a webinar on assessing, planning, and rebuilding our businesses. And this kind of inspired Leah and I to talk with all of you wonderful people about rebuilding your businesses, but really focusing in on rehiring your employees. Now that PPP loans are starting to come through and we're starting to see funds influx our businesses, now we need to start talking about meeting that 75% payroll threshold. And that means we're talking about bringing our employees back. And there's a right way to do that, and there's a not so right way to do that. And so Leah and I thought this is a perfect time to talk with you guys about rehiring your employees the smart way. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Leah is monitoring our Facebook feed, so if you have any questions, please jump in, ask your questions below. We're here to help you. And if you don't catch this live, send us a message, schedule a consult with us. We're happy to talk with you one-on-one and answer your specific questions specific to your situation. You can go to hrbranches.com and then just select the schedule consult option at the top of our page, and that will literally take you to directly scheduling a meeting or a consult with us, and we can answer your questions. This is really important for your business, and it brings up some important considerations for you to maneuver through as you start thinking about bringing back these employees. So without further ado, let's just jump on in, and don't forget to ask your questions below or schedule that consult with us. So Leah, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I'm so happy to be in the office today. I'm happy to be back to Facebook Lives, from somewhere other than my living room, and hoping that my son doesn't wake up in the middle of one. He's adorable, but he's a handful. It's a little distracting when I'm, trying to stay on topic. But I'm really happy to see that we're starting to come out of some of these restrictions, the stay-at-home restrictions, and businesses are starting to open back up. Of course, that opens up, a whole world of other obstacles, but it's still the right step in the right direction, and to get the economy going again, getting small businesses some revenue. So I'm happy to see it happening, and I'm glad that we're able to talk through some issues that we're seeing our clients go through, and be able to educate the small business community on those.
Yeah, absolutely. As we've been maneuvering through a lot of topics of discussion with our clients, I think the number one question I've been answering, actually there's about 3 or 4 of them, which we'll get to, but the number one question I have been receiving lately is in regards to the PPP loans. Of course, everybody wants that forgivable aspect to their PPP loans, which means that you have to hit 75% of that amount of your PPP loan, and you have to apply 75% of it towards payroll costs. The latter 25 can be used for your rent, your utilities, anything along those lines, but really the hard-hitting point is that 75%. And so a lot of our clients and a lot of our community, our small business community, is feeling that pressure to immediately bring back their whole entire workforce. But you guys, I want to caution you in responding to rehiring your employees, all of your employees back, in fear mode or reactionary mode. Just because you get that PPP doesn't mean you should bring back a cancerous employee who's already been doing harm. I've worked with a couple clients who were already considering firing an employee, then they ended up laying them off. Now they're talking about bringing that cancer back into their company. Reconsider that. Or if your business doesn't need that role, for an example, we have a client and they're in the retail arena, and they're only able to open for curbside. And so they're figuring that out. Well, that doesn't mean that they need their whole entire staff, right? Especially retail staff. So they would essentially be rehiring these employees. They would be getting paid for virtually doing nothing and adding no value into their employment base. So does that really help our economy? Does that really help our businesses? Absolutely not. So what are some things that you could do? You could actually hire someone to help you build up your online presence. You can help someone or hire someone to help you with your marketing. You still need to get that 75% payroll aspect, but find someone, hire someone who adds value to your business. Be smart. Don't feel pressure just to hire someone just because you have this money sitting there. And worst case scenario, if you get a portion of your loan that's not forgivable, in looking at the opposite end of the spectrum of bringing back someone who doesn't add value or decreases the value of your business, it may just be worth it just to take that hit on the forgivable side of your loan. So think through the rehiring of your employees and be a smart business owner. Don't just make rash, quick, not thought out decisions when it comes to hiring. Remember, slow to hire, quick to fire. Always be slow, thoughtful, and methodical, and that includes today in this situation that we're looking at. So if you have any questions on that, again, post below, schedule a consult, we got your back. Now, Leah has been receiving a lot of questions on unemployment, and this has been a really big hot button. Leah, talk with everybody about those employees who are receiving more money on unemployment and don't want to come back to work.
So this is a hot topic. Everyone is kind of going through this on a national level, and there's two sides to it, right? There's businesses are ready to open, they receive the PPP loan, you know, there's the forgivable aspect of it. When you rehire furloughed employees, it's, you know, there's a large portion of it that's focused on getting everybody back to work, right? And then you have the other side of it. There's individuals that are making a lot more on unemployment that don't necessarily want to come back, which is not a long-term plan for individuals, right? You can only be on unemployment so long, and it's this went from an employee's market and flipped to an employer's market. So there were too many jobs in order to fill them, but now we're kind of seeing that dynamic shift, and there is a downside to that. So on one side, you have employers that if your people don't want to come back to work because they're making more in unemployment, that kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth, right? You want to get them back to work. You're trying to run your business, but also support your people, right? They have a job. You're trying to bring them back so they can, you know, come back to their jobs and get life going again. If they do not want to come back, there are some legalities to that. You will want to, you are legally required to report to unemployment that those employees that have refused coming back to a job. So for those individuals that are, you know, trying to stay on unemployment as long as possible and don't want to take that job, if it gets reported back to unemployment that you refuse to take your job back, your unemployment actually ends. And then you're kind of at the creek. You don't have a job to go back to, and your unemployment ran out. So it's not unemployment, and this bonus was there to support the economy, employers and workers, but it's not necessarily there to use to your advantage in that way. So and you are completely able to take a job somewhere else if you don't want to go back. That's one thing, but there are some downsides to that. So for employers that are looking at trying to bring back your workforce and they don't want to, there are some steps that you need to take. You do have to report that to unemployment, and then you need to go about replacing them, right? and we'll be actually talking about that next week, recruiting strategies post-COVID in our Facebook Live on Wednesday at noon. So be sure to tune into that.
If you don't mind, I'd like to jump in and just really sum this up with a quick statement. When an unemployed individual gets laid off and they file their claim every week or 2 weeks, I forget what it is, one of the first questions that qualifies them for their unemployment payment is, are you available and ready to work? And they have to click yes on that. If they are not available and ready to return to work, they do not qualify for unemployment. And if they refuse to return to work, that means that they are not qualified for unemployment and they are not suitable to receive unemployment. So that actually terminates their claim immediately. So if they have the choice of collecting unemployment or returning to work, it's actually not a choice. It's now that the employer is ready for that employee to return to work, unemployment is no longer accessible. And employers are required to report it, and the employee is required to report it. And be honest, if the employee does not report it and it gets either not reported by the employee will be held liable to repayment and possible penalties for collecting unemployment that was fraudulent. So there can be big repercussions. You as an employer, even if you want to make those accommodations to the employee to allow them to stay on unemployment, that is actually a fraudulent action, and that employee can be held liable to that. So this is serious stuff and you need to be aware of it. So sorry to interrupt, Leah, but I wanted to really be clear on this.
No, I'm glad you actually covered that and touched on that in a little bit more detail and the legalities behind it, because I think it's important that everybody understand that. So was there anything else that we wanted to cover with that, or did we want to talk move on to paperwork and some of the processes?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think we've beaten unemployment. Of course, we could probably answer about 20 more questions on unemployment itself, but fact of the matter is our economy is finally starting to look at a downward reduction in unemployment claims, which is a beautiful thing, and I'm so excited to see these numbers reduced and get America working again. Gosh, I can't wait to go to like my favorite restaurant or go shopping at my favorite stores. I'm ready. But yes, paperwork is the next thing. And Leah, you are my paperwork queen. So I really want you to go over this with our audience here, because this is really important and no one knows this stuff better than you.
So when your employees come back, and it can be very easy to get overwhelmed with reopening your business and trying to get a hold of all your employees and sanitization and the CDC guidelines on relaunching your business and social distancing. It's a lot to handle. But when you're bringing back your employees, you have to remember there is paperwork that needs to be done. So it's just the same as if you were to rehire them pre-COVID or hiring an employee that has never worked for you before. There is paperwork that has to be completed. So their I-9, their W-4, collecting their IDs. There are spots on the I-9 that have a rehire section. So if their IDs are still current and you already have copies of them, you do not need to recollect those. However, they still need to complete a new I-9 or a new W-4 if they don't need to complete a new I-9 if you verify that you're rehiring them and their IDs are the same. And the same filing procedures still apply. So hopefully you have your system in place where you are filing them appropriately. We've talked about this before. We've had classes on it. about how to properly file your employee paperwork, make sure that it's not only compliant and that you're filling out all the required sections, but also that it's locked up and only available to need to know your managers or whoever. So there are a lot of precautions surrounding that, but you do need to have them recomplete that paperwork.
So with the I-9, isn't there a section on the I-9 that you actually have to complete for a rehire, Leah?
Yes.
Yes. So,
so hopefully you still have your I-9 available and easily accessed. I don't know what happened in, lockdown mode when maybe you boxed everything up and took it, so it would be safe in case your on-site office got broken into or something like that. So make sure that you have easy access to that paperwork so you can fill out the re-verification rehire section.
Yeah, so make sure you do that. And then in addition to the W-4 and the I-9, some good ideas on having your employees review is updating their emergency contact form, which is really important, especially right now. And then on top of that, updated policies, specifically, and I'm going to throw a shameless plug out there in a second, but specifically an updated COVID-specific health and wellness and safety policy that talks about your new and updated operational procedures that include disinfecting your environment, social distancing, masks, general safety in the workplace to make sure that we don't see an influx of spread of COVID because we are reopening the workforce. You guys, I want to stay open. And if you don't abide by these best practices, we may get shut down again, and none of us can afford this. So get a health and safety policy put in place and make sure you communicate this to all of your employees and they sign it. And here's the deal. In the next couple days, a little tickler, we've worked with our really good friend of Christina Gilbertson of Gilbertson Law, and we are currently in the final steps of creating a pre-written COVID health and safety policy template for you. So keep an eye on our Facebook because this will be coming out, and all you will have to do is literally download it, make a few adjustments to make it, yours, and then have your employees sign this document. It's really important. And then beyond that, updated employee handbooks, anything along those lines, make sure you have all updated paperwork. Is there anything else I'm missing on like good best practices for paperwork, Leah?
So as far as policies, there's a lot going on surrounding that, and following the CDC guidelines is one thing, right? They say, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, did say that you can, introduce temperature taking with your employees. There is a lot around that with, biometric data and HIPAA requirements, privacy concerns, and things like that. But also the logistics of it. When you are taking someone's temperature, who's going to be doing it? Is it going to be your office manager, which is, putting them in a certain position that they don't have training for? That's one thing. You can partner with healthcare professionals that may be able to help you out with that. But when you have to think about if you are logging this information, how are you treating that data? If you're looking at social distancing requirements, are those feasible in your business, right? There are a lot of logistics and surrounding that. So when you are looking at the CDC guidelines and you are looking to implement a COVID-19 health and wellness policy and procedure, you have to think about like what does make sense and what is actually achievable within your business. And are you shooting yourself in the foot because you're putting this policy in place but didn't think about the details of it that could put you in hot water in and of itself. So hallways, how are you going to manage people crossing in hallways? If you want to require masks, are you going to provide them? If someone comes in with a bandana instead of a mask, are you going to allow that? So it can go down a whole steep road. So just think it through when you're implementing these policies and procedures and protocols on, what makes sense and what steps are required if you're going to start implementing that and having your employees sign off on it. So I just wanted to add that it's not, it can sound good and, safe and everything up front, but you do have to think about, how much work and what you are willing to, what you're going to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not implement, but how are you going to supervise? And there's that word that I'm just missing.
I hate it
what
when
is
that
it?
happens.
It's I don't know.
Anyways,
anyway, moving on.
But in addition to that, don't put so much pressure on yourself to think through everything. There are going to be the unexpected that pops up. Don't be afraid to adjust and maneuver, and let your employees know that there's going to be adjusting and maneuvering going forward. So yes, try and think of as many details as you can now so you can get that established, but don't be afraid of, you come down the road and you think, oh my gosh, I didn't really think about that aspect. Don't be afraid to address it then and communicate those changes and set everybody else up for that expectation that changes are likely going to happen. So, we've talked about a lot. The very last thing I really want to talk about when it comes to rehiring your employees, which I think is probably the most important attribute in rehiring your employees, is retraining your employees. Even though they may have worked for you before, the environment that they're coming back to work in is completely different than the environment that they left 4 weeks ago, whenever you guys decided to lay your employees off. And so before you bring your employees back, it's really important for you to sit down and think about those changes and those updated operations and best practices and procedures, and make sure that you're communicating and training your employees to meet these needs. We've already talked about the health and safety policy, but you also have to train them on how to execute this policy too. You can't just throw a policy at them and say, here, do it. That will never work and it will never be effective. I don't know how many times people have tried to throw paper at me. It doesn't work. So what you really have to look at is, okay, here's my policy and here's a lot of what I've thought through, and now I need to teach it to my employees. Now I need to show you where 6 feet apart is. Let me show you how we're going to disinfect the bathroom, right? Okay, so we need to make sure before we go out and walk down the hall, is there enough space for us to maneuver through? If we're using commonly used office equipment or areas, the coffee maker or the fax machine, who's fax machine nowadays, the copy machine, whatever it is, how are you going to disinfect that? And how are you going to train your employees to do that? If you have a restaurant and you're working in a kitchen, how are you going to make sure your line cooks are so far apart and they're, experiencing social distancing in safe, or at least sometimes it's going to be hard with social distancing, but how are you maintaining a safe environment for your employees? So that's number one, is training your employees on keeping that safe environment, not only for your employees, but for your customers too. And that's going to be essential in reopening. Next is your updated operations. Things in your business, I can almost guarantee have changed, whether it's doing Zoom meetings like Leah and I are on right now, right? Teaching them how to use Zoom, how to make a virtual connection, or is it how do you effectively use the cash register and limit touches on your card reading machine? And how do you train your employees on limiting those touches? There's so many considerations on how to schedule client appointments, or facilitating that curbside pickup for your retail operation. Training your employees on those essential operations is going to be pivotal in your success, because if you just sit there and say, okay, well, now we're doing curbside, well, what does that mean to the employee? And they're probably going to screw it up if you don't show them what to do. And if they screw it up, who's losing money? You're losing money, and you can't afford that right now. None of us can afford that. And then I think even beyond your initial safety and updated operations training, go back and retrain them. It's been a while since they've been at work. So even just the basics of your product information, your general operations, customer service, go back and refresh their memory so they don't forget that important core attribute to your business. And then last but not least is, again, don't be afraid to maneuver and adjust. Before Leah and I even got on the Zoom call, we were talking about how we feel that there's going to be about a 3-month incremental change throughout the rest of the remainder of probably the next year. Every single 3 months, we're going to see an evolution in business changes and how we are all operating. You know, we're going to get through the summer and things might loosen up because we're not seeing as much COVID. This fall may be coming and we may see an increase in COVID again. What happens then? How do we change and adapt? What does the latter parts of winter bring, or next spring? We don't know, but one thing I know for certain is there's going to be changes, which means you as an employer have to pull out your crystal ball, keep an eye out for these changes, leverage off of your employees and your customers, keep your ear to the ground and listen to them, adapt, change, and then again, retrain your employees. You're going to constantly be training. You're going to be so sick and tired of training. It's going to be a little ridiculous, but it's going to pay off. Constantly make these changes and be ahead of the game and train your employees. And I promise this will help the success of your business immensely. Leah, what else do you have to add? I see that.
Enforce.
Yes.
That's the word I was looking for. It just wasn't coming to me.
I would have never guessed that word. That one did not come to my mind.
I don't know. So it is what it is. But no, I mean, I think we covered a lot of really good information today, and things are going to continue to change, and we're going to continue to push out content that is relevant to what we're all going through and how to work through that, and Facebook Lives and everything. So if you are experiencing issues right now, or you foresee some in the future that you want some guidance on, please comment below, email us, sign up for schedule a free consult where we can talk you through some of those issues. And we're just trying to educate the small business community as much as possible so we can all work through this and make it a little bit smoother of a transition. You know, anything to make our lives easier and you know, our businesses run a little bit smoother. That's really what we're here for.
I couldn't agree anymore. I'm trying to look really quick before we sign off. I just want to make sure, are there any questions we need to answer? Or looks like we've got a decent amount of people watching, which is great. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We love having you here. You've got about 30 seconds to post a question before we sign off. Just as a reminder, Leah and I are hard at work bringing you exactly what you need during this time. We're constantly staying updated on all of the current legislation. We're looking forward and seeing what you guys need. Hence this Facebook Live. We see rehires coming and we are here to support you. You will see sooner than later a COVID health and safety policy template that you will be able to download. You should see that, in the next couple of days. So keep an eye out for that. And then don't hesitate to schedule a consult with either Leah or I. You can go to hrbranches.com and you can literally put something on our calendar just by clicking that schedule consult button. And then last but not least, share this video with anybody you know who could use this video. This is good, solid information, and generally people pay us for this. You're getting this for free. And we don't do this for people we don't love. So clearly we love you. And we want to love your friends too. So share this video. There's a lot of business owners who can use this information, and we want to help you.
Be sure to tune in next week on Wednesday at noon. We're going to be talking about what recruiting looks like post-COVID-19 and some of the changes that have come along with that and some opportunities that come along with that. So we'll be talking a little bit more recruiting strategy then, which is my favorite topic. So be sure to like our Facebook page so you get notified when we go live. And you can even go to our event page and it's listed there. You can sign up to watch those Facebook Lives that are based on recruiting, Ask HR. Those are the regular ones. All the other Facebook Lives are kind of, you know, whatever topics come to us that fall outside of that, then we, you know, schedule them there. But be sure to like our page and tune in next week.
Thank you so much for joining us. We had a blast talking at you. Maybe next time you'll ask some questions so we can talk with you. Hint, hint. And Leah, thank you so much for all that you do. You are truly valued.
Thank you for all you do. Real quick, I did want to ask you that because that SCORE workshop that you did was so valuable. And I know you were recording it. Are they making that available to register for on-demand watching on the website?
You know what? I have no clue. How about I check into that for you and I'll let you know. And if it is, we can go ahead and blast that out.
Okay, that would be great. Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks for asking. It was a great, really great, really great workshop. Yeah. All right. Till next time, my friend.